Hello everyone, I'm back with another video. This time it is on client-server architecture. Last time we understood what is system design. Now this client-server architecture topic is actually connected to system design in some ways. But to start off, I'll just give you an example that whenever you actually have your mobile application, okay, which is connecting to some backend, right? Front end, back end concept, which we understood last time, right? Now, let's take an example. So, for example, you are checking your balance, okay? Check balance from your mobile app, okay? This mobile app will actually connect to some backend, right? Which we understood last time that there will be some data center which it will connect, and then there will be some server in that data center which will actually serve this request. That means this request, when it reaches the server, it will respond. So normally we call it as request and response. So this my application, mobile banking application becomes my client, and the backend server which serves the request becomes my server. That is the basic concept of client server architecture. Now there can be many examples which you can take. There are many real world examples which I can give you. For example, let's say if you are going to some medical store, right, where you have a lot of medicines, and you give your prescription, something written on this, to the guy who is there in the medical store, okay. He will check the prescription, go somewhere, some drawers, fetch the medicine back, and give it to you, right? In this case also, you can imagine that you are acting like a client, and this entire medical store, or this guy, the medical practitioner or the pharmacy guy, along with all the drawers and the medicines, are actually a kind of a server serving the request, okay. So many times in IT, it is the name itself uh, which is sufficient enough for you to understand what that concept means, right? So another example, if I take, let's say if you go to same way, go to some kirana shop, right, where there are multiple items there. Kirana shop. Similarly, if you go to a grocery shop, right, where you are trying to purchase some groceries from the kirana shop, and you get some groceries, you request for some groceries, and it responds you with some items, that is again can be related to a client and a server architecture, okay. Is it clear? I think I'm able to explain you properly what a client server architecture is. Again, going back to the IT example, okay. For example, if I'll take another new, this time I'll take some IT examples, right? Uh, let's say let's say you have you're sitting in your office, right? Your office is huge. You're sitting somewhere over here on your desktop or laptop, and you want to you're accessing your printer. Let's say there is a printer over here where you want to print something. Now there is a network in between, there are switches, right? Okay, if you don't know what switches are, I can explain that in my later videos. But in this case, in this example, if you want to have a print from a printer, normally you send out a print, right? You send out a print, and some paper comes out of here, right? That architecture is also a client and server architecture, where you are your desktop, your laptop is acting like a client, and the printer is acting like a server. Same way, if you are using something like, let's say, Outlook, okay, accessing emails, and your desktop laptop is connecting to some mail server. This can be, by the way, internal to your organization or external also. If you're accessing Gmail or Yahoo Mail or some external mail provider, then definitely this server will not be within your office, it will be somewhere outside. So in this case also, your email Outlook is acting like a client, and your mail server is acting like a server. So these are the basics of client server architecture. Okay, this applies to everything and anything, any kind of IT application which you're using, from, let's say, Zomato, Book My Show, or let's say you're using a browser. In the browser, maybe you're using Chat GPT, you're using Claude, or you're using some Google search. In every case, your browser is acting like a client, and the responses which you are getting in this browser are actually coming from servers. Okay, this is basically called as client server architecture, and this architecture is actually there, in being since the last more than 40 years, right? Whatever we are doing in IT or any application which we access, it follows the client server architecture. That model is being followed. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll just show you this in action. But before that, I would also like to explain you a very simple concept, which is called as APIs. So give me one moment. I will open a new tab. So now, maximum communication, or almost all communication which happens between the client and the server, is using something called as API, an application programming interface. We will actually deep dive into it in some of the future lectures, but because right now I want to focus more on client server architecture, but I have to give you a feel of how that handshake happens. As I told you that, okay, there is a banking mobile application, okay, which you are using, and you do a lot of things. You do get balance, you do fund transfer, you do investments, you pay your utility bills. There are a lot of things which you do. Now when you're doing this, your client or your mobile app or your browser using internet banking is actually connecting to some server at the backend, right? Now, to make this connection, you need some components available, or some entities already available. So I'll just list down. You need something called as uh, internet, right? Without internet, your mobile application will not work. You know that. You need the application itself, correct? You need your mobile application password or internet banking password, correct? And I think these are the minimum things which you can see at the front end, correct, to actually access your or maybe your transaction pin and OTP, which comes into picture sometimes, right, for some kind of financial transactions. Okay, now, when you are connected, you have the internet, you know the password, you know the how to enter OTP, you know your transaction pin. Okay, the exchange which happens, for example, when you're typing, okay, when you're actually when you're typing the username and password over here in IB, or your maybe mobile pin over here, okay, how does this data flow to the server? Now that mechanism is called as API. The full form is application programming interface. Okay, now when I say application programming interface, uh, the exchange is very simple. Okay, nowadays most of the entire world actually follows a specific format called as JSON, which is very simple and human readable. Okay, you may feel that this is something very complex, we are going deep into some deep concepts. Don't worry about that, that is not the case. It is very simple. You can imagine that this guy, when he's typing, he's actually typing something on a paper, you can imagine, right? For example, he can type what is his name, he can type, or he can give his account number, and then maybe your MPIN or password on a paper, and this paper is flowing. So this paper is, how does it flow? So this paper starts from here. Okay, from the mobile app, the user has typed it, this paper flows here to the server, okay, over here, and it reaches the server, and this is basically called as a request. Okay, that means, again, if I capture somehow, that time also got captured, I want to remove it. So this request started from here, okay, from the mobile app, right? When the user typed it, went over here to the server, okay, to the server, and the server now looks at this request and it has to process it, it has to respond and give a response back. Okay, let's say this is just a request for login. Okay, that means when the first time the mobile app opens, the bank customer is actually trying to enter his MPIN, and MPIN, another account name and details are being sent to the server, and the server will try to give a response. Again, you can imagine it's a paper on which the server is writing something, so it can respond like this, right? Can respond something like this, right? Login success, account number ABCD123, something like that. Then maybe it can give some more details, name, maybe your profile details, your age, your address. Okay, these are all hypothetical fields which I am taking. I'm calling these as fields, by the way, for you. So just don't hold me for that. For every banking application, for every mobile application, these fields are fixed basis the application requirement. Okay, so this is now something which has become a response from the server, and this response will actually go from here to the mobile app. Once this response reaches over here, that means your mobile app will now allow the customer to log in, and then he will see other screens like dashboard and other stuff, which again are, some API calls happening like this, and you're getting response. So continuously it happens like response and request, response request, response request. There are multiple API calls happening all the time, which are responsible for exchange between a client and a server. Okay, so I hope till now I was able to explain what is the client server model. Now we will actually try and understand how this looks into action, or maybe I'll give you some feel. I'll take an example of login which I've taken over here. Okay, I'll use some dummy APIs. But before that, let me just connect. You can see my laptop. Now in the laptop I have opened a tool which is called as Postman. It is very simple. I'm using a browser based Postman version. You can just go to Google and type Postman for APIs. You will get this link where you can log in using your uh, account name. Your maybe I logged in using Gmail, my Gmail account. You can either create a new account or use your Gmail account to log in. So I logged in and I have some test uh, APIs which I can use. So I will use this dummyjson.com auth slash login. How I am going to use, I am going to create a request. Okay, I'm going to call this URL. Okay, this is basically a URL, an API call which is happening, and I will post this request and let's see what happens. Okay, I'm just so post is something you're writing to the server. So in the client server architecture, if you use get, then that means you're trying to fetch some information. If you use post, that means you're trying to put some information or enter some information to the server. So the difference is very simple. Get means client is trying to get some information. The examples which I gave you for the kirana shop, the medical store, those are all get requests. Okay, but there are many times when you have to post something. For example, for login you need to send and post your username and password, right? Without that it is not going to, it's not a get request, it's a post request, right? So by the way, these are called these are all HTTP methods, which we will again discuss sometime in the future, in the future videos, not now. Now the focus is only on client server architecture and I don't want to get diverted from it. So I will click on send. Send, basically what we are trying to do is that right now this Postman client or Postman browser login is acting like a client, and I am trying to connect to a server which is dummyjson.com, and I'm trying to log in onto that server somehow. Okay, that is the scenario which I have taken. Right now I click on send. Here if you see, my request went there. Okay, my request went there, and what happened is that it is giving me a response. Okay, but it is not logged in. It is giving me a response is that username and password is required. Now of course, if I'm trying to log in, as I told you, minimum factors which are required is the internet is there, mpin, username, password. So now if I'm trying to enter some server, I cannot directly enter without authentication, right? I need a username and password. So what I'll do, I'll use the dummy username and password. By the way, this is what this format is called JSON. Okay, in which the exchange is happening. Again, we will discuss more on JSON in the future videos, not now. It starts with curly brackets, it has key value pairs. For now, just understand this much. So I can copy this and I will go into the body. Okay, and I have to select raw, basically raw format, and click on paste. Now in the body, that means the paper which I mentioned, right, it's like as good as writing something on paper and sending it, right? So this is what has been written on the paper in the request which I am sending, and I am calling this server, and I am telling the server that I am trying to authenticate using login, or I am trying to call the login API. Okay, uh, now I click on send. Let's see what happens. Last time we got a 400 bad request. Let's see what happens now. Oh great, we got a response. Now this time we got an access token. Okay, access token and refresh token, and in the response we got uh, some more fields: ID, username, email, as I told you, the demographics or other field which you will get in a response, right? So this has worked properly. This is how the client server exchange happened. Okay, now let me just go back to the whiteboard and explain you exactly what happened over here so that it gets internalized in your mind. Okay, so what I explained about in that demo, small demo where I used a temporary API. So basically, what I did is on my laptop when I showed you the demo. Basically, what I did was I'll explain you. So this is my laptop. Okay, I was using a client, my browser, using a Postman browser based tool. I went to a server which is dummyjson.com. Okay, and I told it that I want to use your authentication and login API. Okay, when I did that, what I passed was in the request, I passed the username and password. Username something something and password. Okay, when I created this request, it then went from here, from the postman to the dummyjson.com server. What the server did is that it created a response where it is trying to give me some access token and refresh token and some other fields like name, email, etc. So this was the response which was created. Again, the format for this request and response is in JSON. JSON is simple. It starts with curly brackets and then use quotes for key value pairs. As I told you, we'll understand more in the future videos. Okay. So what happens is that now this response is now being sent back from the server to the client. This is how client server architecture works, and this is how the request response structure is, how information is exchanged. It is not rocket science. You should not be worried and afraid. What is the client server architecture? It's very simple. You are the client. Every time you connect any application and do any transaction, any call, any purchase, any buy, or any fetch information, any view information, any uh, update information, that is all happening via request response architecture and a client server architecture. Now the point where you can or the thing that can come to your mind is that how come how come how come the client knows on the internet where is this server, right? Okay, that is where DNS comes into picture, which will be my next topic, which I'll come and explain it to you in my next video. So I hope I was able to explain you, articulate you a lot of things, and it will be helpful for you to understand how a client server architecture works and implement the same, or work upon the same, or troubleshoot, various purposes you can use this information in your real life if you are an IT person. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.